Okay, so Sumesh has given us a broad overview. I'm just going to go through some detail. So I think it's good to just, when markets have moved 10%, and everyone's losing money and puking and panicking, I think we've just got to sit down and really look at the facts and come up with strategies and ideas on a bigger overview on how you should probably be running your book going forward. Because I think we're at an inflection point and the world has changed quite a bit in the last 2 weeks. So GDP, Q2, 1.3 versus 1.9 expected. Revision to Q1, 0.4, okay? That's pretty significant. When we were sitting there on the Friday and we're waiting for the US debt ceiling to be sorted out, and there was prospects of a default, the market wasn't moving. Market only started moving when the GDP numbers came out, and then we had ISM on the Monday, which obviously came in at 50.9, down 4.5% from previous month. Expected 54.3. Now, there's a big problem there. And that's why the market started selling off. Because at 50.9, it's very uncertain what's going to happen in the future. So we're sitting in August, ISM comes in at 50.9. If it had come in at 47, then we know what's going to happen. We're probably, very, very high probability of recession. Okay? At 50.9, that uncertainty came into the market and people started hedging. I started hedging. Okay? And new orders registered 49.2. So direction moving over the next 4 weeks, it's very unclear what's going to happen. University of Michigan, consumer sentiment, 63.7 versus June 71.5. And it's the lowest number since early 2009. Expectations index falls to 56 from 64.8, which is dire. It's really bad. Okay. Now the whole US debt debacle, it was kind of not a smokescreen, but it was a distraction from what these figures. These figures are what really matters. Okay. But over the long term, you can't ignore the US debt ceiling. Now, I'm just going to go through some numbers for the US debt debacle. So US GDP, 14.2 trillion. Debt to GDP ratio, 100%. Debt ceiling raised immediately by 400 billion to avoid default, okay? With another 500 available up till February, okay? So a total short-term increase of 900 billion. And then they put in measures to cut the deficit by between 2.1 and 2.5 trillion over 10 years, okay? So October this year, 900 billion of spending cuts kick in. November this year, we get a report from the committee that's been chosen, the Committee of 12, from the House and the Senate, and they come back with recommendations on how to cut up to 1.5 trillion. But they can't increase taxes, okay? And by Christmas, Congress has to vote on the committee's plan. If it's rejected, 1.2 trillion of automatic cuts kick in. So basically, there's a backstop. Cuts are going to happen, whether it's 1.2 or 1.5. The idea is that they're trying to incentivize them to cut by 1.5, okay? And the last part of the deal, which is what probably should have happened this week, it should have happened this week, was actually to hold a vote for an amendment to the Constitution for a balanced budget, as in all future federal spending has to equal revenue, okay? And that's what I think people got spooked by, because that's still a headline risk, okay? So if the amendment passes, then Obama can request to raise the debt ceiling by a further 1.5 trillion. And if he doesn't, and if it doesn't pass, he can request an increase of 1.2, okay? So basically, when you look at the whole situation, the US has given itself license to raise the debt ceiling from 14.3 to 17.6 within a year. And then that takes them to 2013. So total cuts proposed, minimum of 2.1, maximum of 2.5. And that comes out, and this is one of the main problems, planned future increases of spending. So already planned future increases, okay, over 10 years. So they're running a current deficit of $1 trillion. So on average, you'll see a maximum of 0.25 trillion each year. And an ongoing deficit of 0.75 if the amendment doesn't pass, yeah? And this means if it doesn't pass, basically, the GDP ratio, they're going to hit the new debt ceiling in 2014. So they just absolutely kick the can down the road. And they'll end up with a GDP ratio of 125%, debt to GDP ratio, sorry, of 125%, which basically puts it on par with Italy, Iceland, and Jamaica, which is just embarrassing. So you can look at it in two ways. It's a step. Is it a positive step? Probably not enough. But, you know, it was a massive distraction from what is really, really mattering in the market now, which is GDP, ISM, consumer confidence, okay? So GDP, ISM, consumer sentiment, and consumer confidence as well. The fiscal mess, it just means that the stock market has to be rebased. You know, things have massively changed now. And I don't think, you know, at the time, no one really, really genuinely thought that the US was going to default. You could see that by the way the market was trading beforehand. And I don't think anybody believed at the time as well that they would handle the situation as badly. The risk for me that we're going into a recession now is significantly higher. And it's a coin toss. It really is a coin toss. And the uncertainty is the problem. That's why the market's being destroyed. And there's opposing factors as well, which adds the uncertainty. Because for me, QE3 in some form is absolutely inevitable now. So fiscal levers, gone. Interest rates as a lever, gone. This is their only option. And there's another argument that if Bernanke stands up on Tuesday and says, we're going to do a 400 billion bond buying program, is that enough? Because there's numbers being bandied about the market now in the trillions, and the market's become very, very aware of the situation. So if Bernanke stands up on a podium and announces something in the next week or two for QE3, there could be another real problem, because the number could be seen by the market as to not be enough, okay? So the uncertainty is killing the market. I mean, the way I look at it now, you know, I've been buying dips for over 24 months. 26 months I've been buying the dips, yeah. Do we sell the rallies? It's probably too early to tell. So I've just gone hedged. I've gone half my size, and I'm just kind of hiding, waiting for some confirmation here. I mean, I'm almost praying for a direction. You know, I want to see, if ISM comes in September at 47, then at least we've got a direction. What's happening is the uncertainty is killing the market. So I think at least for the next 4 weeks, what you've got to do in a bigger picture, running your own book, is be neutral. You've got to be neutral, the stock market, and just trade intra-sector spread trades, make sure you're beta hedged, and try and trade some volatility, to nick money here and there, and just be nimble. There's a lot of people have been absolutely killed out there. Hearing numbers of macro hedge funds down 5% in the first week. It's pretty scary stuff. So if you can manage to be, down a few percent this month, you're winning. You're absolutely winning. So just be careful. I think we're in a transitionary period.